Welcome back, everybody. It is the Working Brother, and we're back for another recording with George. For you, it might have been a day, two, there might have been another episode between us, but for us, it's been only not even a minute. George, how you doing? Welcome back.
I'm doing great. I'm doing even better than I was before.
That's what spending an hour with the Working Brother does. Let you get things off of your chest, you know? It's good to laugh sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when the topics are so, how can I say, absurd, tragic, apocalyptic. Pick your word. By the way, everybody who's new here, hi, welcome. This is a comedy show. Nothing we say here has anything to do with reality. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's get into page 2 of the 7 Ps.
Well, no, get into page 1 because we need to do this sequentially. One builds on the other.
All right. Page 1.
Yeah, because I'm just going to read through the top part because the top part will always frame how the 7 Ps are presented. Because you want to go from a short form just so people can see what the 7 Ps are, and then how it starts to explain current phenomenon. Really what we're trying to explain a bunch of phenomenon. In physics models, you want to, for people that haven't listened to the previous shows, in physics models, you want to get down to two motivations that can explain a very wide variety, if not all, of phenomenon. And the way I explain that is in aeronautics models, you have gravity and atmospheric density as your two unseen forces. And then the way you measure that and manipulate that is through the 4 factors of lift, thrust, weight, and drag. So yeah, if you want a plane to go fast, you know, like a fighter plane, narrow wings, a big engine, reduce drag, reduce weight, and go for highest terminal velocity. If you want a plane to carry something heavy, you thicken the wings, you're still using big engines, but then you're going to have a bigger fuselage to carry a heavier payload or more people. So you have the difference between fighter jets and then commercial aircraft. And if you're going to have cargo aircraft, especially military cargo aircraft, then they're going to have very thick wings and 4 big engines, not just 2. And so once you increase lift, you're going to decrease terminal velocity. When you have these kinds of trade-offs, the trade-offs are called Pareto optimal models. So you're going to maximize, if you maximize one thing, you're minimizing or decreasing the other factors. So that's what physics models do. So we want to create a model where people can understand what the transition between between Christian capitalism and atheist Marxism is. So we're creating one's really a mirror image of the other, and what they're really talking about. Well, what it misses, what the constant is, people, men and women pursuing resources and mates. So you're really talking about constructive versus destructive forms of competition. That's what real theories of human behavior are based on. Marxism isn't like that. Marxism has a hierarchy of oppression model. So it's not how to have constructive versus destructive behavioral dynamics. They're hoping that they can get people to a sense of status, or stasis, I mean. But if people are continuously competing for resources and mates and it's natural, well, then that system won't work, which is why socialism, Marxism, it fails. Capitalism works because you're with the proper form of government and moral structures in it, you can get a more constructive, competitive competition between men and women. Men and women compete for mates and resources in male forms of competition and female forms of competition. Socialism does not wipe that out. It just creates a system that just really stifles everybody and is very authoritarian. So it goes towards, well, in Fromm's productive versus sadomasochistic character orientation, it always goes towards an authoritarian form of government, which is just, in Aristotle's 6 forms of government, everyone becomes a tyranny. So that being said, since the people last month when we first started this didn't really get, they really got hung up on the patriarchy matriarchy thing. So this paper, I'm just going to read over this. The 7P plan describes the 7 key governmental and social institutions required to transform the West from a Christian capitalist culture based on the patriarchal nuclear family to an atheistic single-party welfare state that exalts the idea of matriarchal conception of the family. Many do not realize the relationship between family forms and government forms. Leftism has more to do with exalting the single mother family than exalting the working class, as many are currently finding out. The P's are defined differently in each paper in the series to eliminate the different aspects of the long march through the institution strategy to transform America to a single-party socialist state. Okay, that's good enough for this paper here. But since the left has the preponderance of these P's almost fully complete, had Donald Trump not got elected in 2016, had Hillary won, yes, they would have changed the election laws. They would have opened up the borders. They would have flooded the United States with more illegals. They would have turned Texas and Florida into blue states through that process. And what would they have achieved? Well, once they take the White House and both houses of Congress, they can start changing the electoral laws in different ways. I'm not going to, I'll bore people with the details of that in another paper because I have it written down. But they'll start changing the electoral laws to start stacking the deck in their favor. So once you vote yourself in, you can't vote yourself out of socialism. Ultimately, they would take the Supreme Court and start with the prosecutor P and start taking away the appeals process. So that way they can start weaponizing the law enforcement intelligence community to lock up people to lock up political rivals instead of criminals, which you're seeing all over the place. That's why you had the Scott Ritter, whether you agree with him or not, he hasn't had access to classified information in a long time, in decades. So why are they searching his house? What did he do that was illegal? He
was getting money from the Russians, man. He was working for the Russians, which is foreign espionage. That's what they're charging him with, which is, I believe, a World War II law that was activated in the U.S. and never taken off the books, and has never actually been used, by the way, I think.
Well, it's supposed to stop, people like Hansen.
Who?
That actually did, the FBI agents that sold secrets to the Russians during the 70s and 80s. There were a rash of them.
Oh, yeah. I don't recall their names, but I'm sure you remember. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I forget some of them, but I had them in a class here or there, or they're on video someplace. Mm-hmm. But if you're selling classified military information, whether it's technology or troop movements or plans and intention strategies, that's classified information. If you're engaging in a commercial business, that's legal. So there's no law that he broke, because if it's going into business with the Russians or the Chinese, well, then you would have a whole bunch of people going to jail. The Clinton Foundation took took millions of dollars from Russian oligarchs, and then the Bidens did also, and Hillary got what, 500,000 from
conspiracy theories and Russian propaganda. Right.
Yeah, so the laws are so unevenly enforced. So yeah, I mean, he can't work the United States, and a lot of that is the trouble that he got into that we're not going to discuss.
Shall we shift gears? Shall we shift gears before we start talking about maps? Okay. I really don't want to get into maps. I really don't want to get into maps with Ritter. Also, did you see that, people? I was drinking water because nobody's bought me a coffee. Well, some people have bought me coffees, but not enough coffees. Buy me a coffee so that I can pull out that money one day, maybe. Anyway,
let's just go through the P's real quick, because what needs to be really discussed is the change in the literature.
Do you want me to read them out, and then you can digest it, and I'll try and be literate and not dyslexic? The Professor P refers to the replacement of the traditional Western university curriculum based on the evolution of Judeo-Christianity in conjunction with the ancient Greek political philosophy, with a post-Rousseauian leftist literature that exalts atheism and a single-party state in one phase, and then only promoting leftists in all educational positions at all federal, state, and local levels. George, I'm not an English expert, but I'm always often accused of having run-on sentences. I think that is a run-on sentence.
I don't care.
and it's perfect for this comedy show because we don't care either. But no, seriously speaking, I think I read that correctly, but I don't think I understood what it meant. Well, I'm playing stupid here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you were trying to say?
All right. Where we're going with this is Tooby and Kosmides wrote an article, Psychological Foundations of Culture. I told you to read that years ago. I did not give you a test in that. But I tell everybody to go on. It's on UC Santa Barbara, UCSB website. John Tooby, Lena Kosmides. The article is called "The Psychological Foundations of Culture." It's in a book called "The Adapted Mind." That's the first chapter or second chapter, I think. Anyway, it has a few different aspects to it. The first one is the physical and engineering sciences have had compatible methodologies and frameworks where one subfield or field can work with this neighboring field seamlessly. Same thing in the biological sciences. But as evolutionary biology flows into social psychology and into the philosophical and social sciences, then the social sciences are a complete chaotic mess. So the first part of what they're saying is, how can the rest of the sciences be so logically coherent? And then once you get to, well, they talk, who they interface with is, since they're in evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology, they're interfacing with psychologists, sociologists, anthropologists, paleontologists. So they're interfacing with them. They're like, wait a second. How come once you talk to them, everything is just a bunch of incoherent nonsense? So then they start talking about there's no coordinating methodologies or frameworks in the social sciences. And once the 1960s liberals took the department chairs in the 1980s, then the university system stopped the scientific project. Okay, in other words, each discipline stopped adhering to scientific principles separately, and then collectively, they call that the scientific project, since all of them abandoned it at once. So what's critical to understanding is, well, what do they mean by that? Well, they don't really know what they mean by that. They're just saying it's all logically incoherent, and they don't know why, because their field of expertise is evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology. they don't know why the social sciences are so messed up. So they say they attribute it to the standard social scientific model, the SSSM, where each field works autarkically, independently of one another. And they say, yeah, they want to overcome racism and all that kind of stuff. Well, they went to critical theory, so that's actually the reverse of it. They went deeper into racism instead of away from it, but that's another point for another day. So they don't know exactly why it's occurred and exactly what the fix is. I, of course, do know what the cause is and the fix is. They should have been comparing what I calling the Hume-Smith model of free market Enlightenment theories, the Rousseau, Marx, Engels model for leftist theories. Well, after the great ideological experiments of the 20th century, Marxism failed in every variant you could talk about. So as a theory of human behavior, it should have gone towards a Hume-Smith model, which is, in economics terms, it's been radically updated by all the Nobel Prize works, and people can just go get a list of them. Basically, we're talking about the big advances in economic theory or general equilibrium theories and dynamic growth theory modeling. So that's where the big fixes are, where you can actually get, where I start building my models, economic growth theories over population growth, so you can get to more developed countries are characterized by higher economic growth, lower population growth, so you get a tight wage labor market. So that's where your relative equality comes into play. And then less developed countries, third world countries and fourth world failed states have slower economic growth, higher population growth. So the denominator is expanding faster than the numerator. So then you're moving towards a catastrophically loose wage labor rate. When you move towards a catastrophically loose wage labor rate, then you have higher levels of income disparity, but you also have no political, financial, or economic stability whatsoever. So you get to authoritarian rule that fills the vacuum to keep law and order under such such unjust conditions, or I should say not unjust, it's dysfunctional conditions. Because we don't, from Plato, we don't know what justice is. It can't be a defined concept. But what you can talk about in the social sciences is what's functional, what's dysfunctional, or in the engineering fields, you're looking for success failure parameters. So we're building success failure parameters with these models. So, okay, when the left took over the university system, they stopped teaching comparative ideological systems theory, and they just started teaching Marxism. So now
George,
people are looking at.
You take a break, like just for a second. I just want to give a shout out. Okay, go. I won't.
No, go ahead. We're gonna wait for you.
Oh, that was a joke? That was you joking? I just want to give a shout out to everybody, including Safa Amari and all the new subscribers who are watching the premiere that is happening now as we're recording. I just wanted to shout out to everybody there and show, put on the record how the working brother is actually working in different timelines and multiple windows at the same time. Yeah. George, are we going to get on to the second one, or do you want to rip into Marxist a bit more? Oh, hold on. I got the Marxist meme, I think, somewhere here. Did I open it? No, I saved it.
Just let me finish, because we're just talking.
Go on.
We're talking about where we need to get to where we're going with the why am I doing these P plans? Well, now they just teach a failed theory of human behavior. So the reason why I'm discussing the Judeo-Christianity and ancient Greek philosophy is the Judeo-Christianity, it focuses on the patriarchy, and then ancient Greek philosophy, the big question of the ancient Greeks was the nomos physis distinction, the laws of man versus the laws of nature. So that's the heart of the scientific principle in the social sciences, is what ideological theory best explains human behavior. and that is the Hume-Smith model, which should be updated with a series of post-Darwinian, post-Watson and Crick, post-Freudian evolutionary and psychological theories. And the ones that are highest explanatory in those fields are the ones that are based on a domain-specific premise. That's the two-gender premise. And the wokesters came in and wiped them out and went to the domain general premise, which is the 57-gender premise. So now the social sciences are messed up. I mean, the micro behavioral sciences are all messed up, teaching the wrong theories of human behavior. And they don't, and in the macro behavioral theories, they discarded the free market theories to teach Marxism. So now the macro theories of human, and avoided performing autopsies on failed experiments. So now the macro behavioral theories are complete nonsense too. So we have a university system that's complete nonsense across the board. That being said, we'll actually get back to.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Let's go to point 2. Should I read it out again and you can get that? Should I do it in a British accent so it sounds more academic?
Yeah.
All right, lovely. Go on. Yeah, what were you going to say?
I just want to tell people, because people will say, just in common speak, yeah, we know the Western university system is messed up, but if you understand the specific, why it's messed up, then you can go to a specific fix that actually fixes it, and they need to go back to a comparative ideological systems theory. That's what they need to do to attain that. Anyway, now we'll go ahead.
The prosecutor P refers to the practice of replacing all free market curricula in the pre-law and law school programs and hiring and promoting only left-leaning attorneys in all governmental judicial positions at all federal, state, and local levels to bring about the progressive single-party welfare state. You see how much more proper it sounds?
Yeah. Well, again, what you have to do to attain that, because people will say, well, wait, they're just putting people in power. Well, no, they're changing the economic system. They're taking the Adam Smith theories of property rights. Okay, his lectures on jurisprudence was the precursor to his theory of wealth of nations. So in that, he's got a detailed description of the evolution of property rights in British common law. And that used to be the basis of legal theory in the West. Well, they removed those books out of their curriculum, and now they just teach, post-Rousseau just nonsense. Well, they're teaching John Rawls' theory of justice, and they're teaching John Dewey's reconstruction of philosophy to be activists. John Rawls' theory of justice was, some people get wealthy and they stay wealthy, their families stay wealthy, you have an elite family. We need to rebalance society, do some kind of great reset, do massive redistribution of income, and proceed forward with that one. I forget exactly what he calls it. It's a complete unworkable theory of nonsense. You have when you start to look at global population growth rates of change, you're like, well, how would you do this across the globe? I mean, it becomes just so unworkable. It's absolutely just completely insane. Yet this is the book that is kind of the backbone in wokest literature right now, or has been for decades, actually.
Wokest literature. That is a specific term. Shall we go into the third one?
Yeah, we can kind of climb through it now.
Do you want to do the third one, or should I?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. The police P refers to the replacement of traditional educational and training curriculum with the leftist curriculum in all police, military, and intelligence community gun-carrying positions. In all federal, state, and local jurisdictions, hierarchy is required to support the single state party and put down any Christian resistance or counter-revolution. You want to translate that, George?
Really, yeah, well, it's just to state its relevancy here and why it's important. Again, I don't want people just to memorize the P's and then so what? What do you do with that information? Well, traditionally, it's in France, Belgium, and Germany in the early days, well, since the French Revolution, and then when Marx and Engels wrote Communist Manifesto during the revolutions of 1848, the police and the military of France, Germany, and Belgium would come in and they would put down leftist revolutions. So now to prevent that, they want to control the gun carrying positions. All right, that's so important now because as the West is going towards bankruptcy, you know, the Cloward and Piven plan, if you have mostly conservatives in the military and police, because that's who usually signs up for those jobs, you know, men with the protector provider instincts that are innate. So you have that kind of personality that naturally goes for those jobs. Well, if they're in the military and the police positions and you bankrupt society to transform it into socialism, then they would have just created a right-wing coup, not a left-wing coup. They're trying to produce a left-wing coup. So now they started to put DEI in the military and police ever since, I would say, 2008.
Diversity, equality, and inclusion, right? Is that what it is? DEI?
Correct. So they need to get the conservatives out of the leadership positions in the gun carrying fields. They need to put wokesters in there. So how are they going to do that? You do that through DEI. Once you put the wokesters in charge of the military and the police, then you're going to start changing the curriculum. Then you're going to try to weed out conservatives. You're going to try to bring in wokesters from the university system, and then retire all anybody that's a conservative. So you're trying to squeeze out. You're trying to bring people in, and then fast track the youngsters up, and then squeeze out the boomers, right? So that's what they're trying to do with the police P. And if the economy does collapse, they want to be in control of the military and police. And that's one of the reasons why they desperately do not want Trump elected. They almost have all of these P's, and if Trump gets elected, he can start reversing them, and he can probably do it very systematically because, well, we're making these papers available. You know, if you understand the problem, you can be reversed systematically more efficiently. Okay, yeah, go to the fourth.
The politician P refers to the replacement of all Western classical curricula with leftist literature as the means of generating more left-leaning politicians at all federal, state, and local levels to change the laws to transform Christian capitalist countries into progressive welfare states. Succinctly put, George.
Yeah. Okay. So you have the Professor P. With the Professor P, you're trying to take over. Their first order of business is to take all over the governmental piece. So the prosecutors who prosecute laws and the judges, you mean all government attorneys here. So you want people that enforce the laws and interpret the laws, the prosecutors and the judges. With the police, you want people that enforce the laws. With the politicians, you're after the people who make the laws, because you want to change it away and allow, well, the Supreme Court was knocking down a lot of Roosevelt's Great Depression because they thought it was against American capitalist ideology. So now they want judges that pass laws no matter how much they're against the Constitution. So yeah, go up to the next P.
Press. Shall I?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The press refers.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, go ahead and read it, and then I'll interpret it.
The prize refers to the practice of replacing traditional curriculum in the university schools of journalism with a leftist literature to promote feminism and leftism in all mass communications and media forums at a federal, state, and local arenas needed to manufacture consent. So this is basically that meme of the journalism of the old days being people coming, one person, the journalist, coming to the politician with a megaphone on behalf of the people, and the modern version of journalism, which I would presume is this what you're talking about here, where they're basically parroting and projecting all this leftist stuff that the politicians, amplifying basically what the politicians have to say.
Yeah, they've become the stenographers. It's really is
stenographer. There you go.
Yeah, so here, yeah, the Frankfurt School moved into the fields of sociology and journalism. Yeah, in the 50s, and they really turned these fields into, well, just complete leftist indoctrination students. That's all they produce now. So they get into the field. They produce these students in the field of in the schools of journalism. Then they go into mass media. And over time, when they bring in young interns, they want the wokest interns to hire. You want to weed out anybody else. So they keep on doing that, and decade after decade, it just gets more and more left. So that's how that works. It's not by it's not so much of a conspiracy. It's an indoctrination culture, is what it's become.
I got video evidence of it not being a conspiracy. This is from Paris, apparently. This is a bus that identifies as a train. So doesn't get more left than that, I think. A bus that identifies as a train. From Paris. Probably. Maybe. Back to your P's. The press. And the priest. Are we at the priest?
Yeah.
The priest refers to the reshaping of the curriculum of as many theological schools as possible to promote feminist matriarchal family structure values and displace the traditional Abrahamic patriarchal conceptions of the family that form the hierarchy of citizen duties and responsibilities. What? I mean, I get it, but you want to get into it?
Oh, yeah. It's, under Christian Protestantism, the father was supposed to support the family. There was the incentives were to keep the nuclear family together. So leftism does the opposite of that. Yeah, because they think that, well, if women had guaranteed welfare money, whether they were married or not, that would create a much better situation for the family unit. And that experiment has been going on in the West. Men stopped getting married because of, well, if you go through divorce court hell, once you see your friends go through divorce court hell, you don't want to get into that either. So marriage rates go down. Single parent families do go down, but then abortion rates go up. So women just have abortions. So now what's the outcome of that? Well, you have societies that don't have replacement rates, like any of the northern hemisphere countries now don't have replacement rates to pay off for the welfare programs. So you now have just a really vicious circle of problems due to leftism that they don't want to acknowledge. So then they bring in mass migration, and all the problems are getting worse.
You know what an unintended consequence of all of that is? I mean, other than the fact that you get conspiracy theory comedy channels like yours truly. Alex Jones's son has become catechized. I'm not sure how to say that in English. By how did you say it? Catechize?
Yeah.
Why do you pronounce things in one way and spell them in a German way?
No
English people are weird. In any case, Alex Jones. So yeah, his son Rex, by the way. Never mind. Anyway, that's not for everybody. But yeah, he has been what did you say? Catechized in the Orthodox Church in one would presume Texas. So there's that unintended consequence of the priest class being pushed to the left, eh? George, you there? Did I lose you? Was that too far of a segue?
No, that's yeah. I don't. My friends know Alex Jones, but I've never met him. So
oh, that's right. So you're Texas-based too.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know what's going on with that.
If you can reach out to Alex Jones, reach him out. I'd like to talk to him. That would be excellent. Have him on the show.
Yeah, they were. I think they were at the trucker convoy, but I got sick and I didn't want to spread any more of whatever I was. I don't know, like a really bad cold or something. And I didn't want to get everybody else sick. So I was supposed to meet with some of those people.
You never told us what happened in your New York trip. You even sent photos that one time. But we'll get into that maybe another time with like in detail. Do you wanna mention that at all, or do you want to save that for another time?
That's gotta stay on the down. Let's just leave that on the down low for a while.
All right, we'll leave it for another talk. We're down to the 7th B. The parental refers. Shall I do it in British? Let's do it in British. The parental refers to the goal of the Rousseau-Marx-Engels thought lineage to replace the Abrahamic patriarchal system with a single-parent matriarchal family unit, supported by the state, thus displacing the role of the husband, as expressed in the history of feminist literature.
That reading just kind of blew me away.
It's scary, isn't it? It's difficult on the mouth. It's difficult on the mouth. Like, but I went to British school for like 4 years, so like you can't not pick it up when you're a kid. You know what I mean? But it's not like people ask me like, why don't you speak like that all the time? It's because like this is the normal and like this is comfortable for my mouth. Like if I wanted to like torture myself, then I'd speak like this all the time, like I've got a stick up the ass.
Where did you go? Where did you go to British school?
In Kuwait, the best of British education.
Wait, you went to British school in Kuwait?
Yeah, private British school in Kuwait. Yeah.
Okay,
and private American schools, like separately.
Down in the rings around Kuwait City, there, someplace.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get out that much in Kuwait when I go through.
I grew up there for a very long time, one could say, like basically since I was 7, or since the breakup of Yugoslavia, or since I had to change my passport every couple of years because the country changed names every couple of years, like we discussed a couple of times here. Anyway, let's get back to the 7 Ps.
Yeah, I want to speak to something here. All right. There's an Aaron Rousseau video that was out. Well, he died a while back, but they're decades old, that he did during the 90s or 80s and 90s or something. It's kind of like the Yuri Bezmenov videos. They're good to really go back and watch what they said then, and because these things aged really well over the decades. And so Aaron Rousseau was talking about, he recalls a conversation about the Equal Rights Amendment in the 1970s, and that was an Equal Rights for Women's Act that was big. I was in grade school back then, but anyway, it was a big issue for a long time. And he said he was talking to one of the Rockefellers, and he said, well, but they were talking about what the Equal Rights Amendment was about. And he was like, well, really, we want more women to leave the household and start working, because if they're housewives, we can't tax them. If they're working, we can tax them. And the guess was that you would have, with twice as many people working, you want to basically double the labor participation rate of working adults, then the state would get more money in taxes. So he says it's not really about equal rights. It's about increasing the amount of income that the governments take in. So then he said the second effect was, well, once women are out of the house, then you no longer have the parents having as much influence over the children. Then the kids will spend more time in school, and then the state takes over much more of the parental function. So he was like, oh, his big deal was he didn't realize all the underlying implications of the equal rights for women. Now, in reality, women just flooded the labor market. The wage labor rate, went down instead of up because now you flooded the labor market. So, yeah, you had two people working, but the incomes didn't really change that much for the middle class, and especially for the lower middle class. It actually dropped. And then the number of children per family dropped. So then decades later, you have, we're not having enough children for the replacement rate. Now you have to do the mass importation of people. But of course, that's, instead of paying off the welfare state, that's actually exacerbating the pressures on the welfare state. So again, we're headed towards collapse. But if people go back and watch his videos, they'll be like, oh, none of this worked out the way people thought it was. And these government programs of, oh yeah, you have equal rights, but what are going to be the knock-on effects? The knock-on effects have actually been disastrous.
George, as you're aware, I'm following the chat in the live that's going on that I recorded with another guest previously, or like premiere, not live. And one of the comments was that Texas, peace be, may rest in peace, would not approve of me making fun of Marx. And I promised to ask you to give us the lowdown, in a couple of sentences, on what are the many levels of Marx. Let's put it that way. The good, the bad, the ugly. Can you give us a rundown of Marx?
I mean,
and how it relates to the 7 Ps, obviously, like how it's
He was okay. I mean, that's actually a pretty good juncture.
I know.
What are we doing on? What are we doing for time here? How long is this one?
We're good. 42 minutes. You got time.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yeah, because I read that one video that you or I watched the one video that you posted today, and he was in the Orthodox Church, and he was talking about Christianity and Marxism. Okay, well, no. He's the Russian Orthodox Church, whatever it was in the past the Bolshevik Revolution, it's something different now. And they haven't, since the Western university system took out the comparative ideological systems, it's not only the conservative movement, it's not only the leftist movement that's indoctrinated, it's also messed up the conservative movement. So it's having an ideal where people are constructively competing for resources and mates is the actual ideal. And he's actually confused this with the church should go into communism. Well, communism, the economic growth rates are abysmal from centrally planned systems. If you take an American football game, or any kind of football game really, but if you have an American football game and you actually want to control each player, each play would take an hour if you were to move one player one at a time like a chess piece. What you do in a constructive system is you teach people how to play to the best of their ability. You hike the ball and you let them play. And then all of a sudden, American football play only really lasts a few seconds. But there's a lot going on in those few seconds because you have different strategies in the way that they line up down in distances that they want to achieve. The way they line up, they can only run basically 6 major plays out of that formation. So then they're training each player that the players that they're looking at, if they move one way or the other, now they've reduced a maximum of 6 to 8 plays. Now they've fixed it to 2, and another tenth of a second on these players that they're keen on. If they move this way or that way, now they moved it down to 1 play. So if you're teaching people how to play games and detect patterns and movements, then all of a sudden the game really speeds up and there's a lot going on there. But that means the coaches are training the people how to play, like teachers and educators should be teaching people how to compete constructively better, rather than a centrally planned system that wants to regulate everybody's movement, which really slows everything down to a stultifying speed and ruins the game. So that's why capitalist theory, they get the game right. You're supposed to have a constructive competition. Now, in the field of economics, they've actually, since they've divorced, it's now just numbers, and they actually don't have, they have a very complex mathematical system, but they don't have a very complex, well, they don't have any kind of behavioral system that matches it, because they took comparative ideological systems theory out. My universal unified behavioral theory wants to put that back. It reduced complex economics, mathematics to a per capita GNP ratio, so I could build a complex constructive versus destructive micro-macro behavioral model behind it. So, okay, knowing that, when I look at what Texas Donbass says in that video, so he's taking an economic system that is super inefficient, and he's saying that Christianity is supposed to be that. Well, no. Christianity is supposed to be a moral structure that's supposed to have an eternal end. You're supposed to be good to people now, so you'll go to heaven. So the real reward is supposed to be eternal. But if you treat people nicely, you will have the benefit of having highly cooperative relationships and lower antagonistic relationships. So the part of how you're supposed to create a constructive versus destructive behavioral dynamic, yeah, he doesn't understand any of that metaphysics or any of that actual how that actually works out in psychological terms. So yeah, he's very confused when he says that.
I think what he was getting at, if I recall, I didn't watch the video today, but I watched it a long time ago, and I had this discussion with him in person actually when I met him, and he was just saying basically how like communism is always presented as this how should I say, antipole or polar opposite of religion or orthodoxy, and he was just saying that some of the values in Christianity and orthodoxy are very communist in nature, in the sense that, like, you know, the family and like taking care of your own and so on and so forth, that kind of thing. I don't think he was getting into the economics or the political implications of either. You know what I mean?
He can't think that far, and I spent 3 decades on it. So I mean, we're coming at it from very different perspectives.
Yeah. He has a much more on the ground communist perspective. What was it? What was the other term for communists? I can't remember.
Yeah,
there was a distinction.
The Black Swan guy. The Black Swan guy, Talib, I forget his first name. He has it right. In his household, it's communism. With him and his neighbors, it's socialism he shares. But for the external government that he wants capitalism. So
I think that's what it was. He told me, the Texas told me that he went to Cuba a long time ago, and he met a Cuban female revolutionary, and he said he was communist. and she said she was socialist, and she asked him as a joke, "Do you know what the difference between a communist and a socialist is?" And the answer is one who's fought for it. You know what I mean? As in, like, you know, held a gun. At least that was the joke, if I recall correctly. Yeah. I may be butchering it. This is a comedy show. May his soul rest in peace.
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
Yeah, it's just, you know, he has an ideal, like, I don't know, that Walsh guy that says, well, you know, one man's socialism is another man's neighborless. Well, you go back to Montesquieu's writing, The Spirit of the Laws, the government has really unintended consequences. And after each failed program, well, as socialism or communism collapses and the economic production rates plummet, so yeah, they share equally in the poverty instead of sharing relatively equally in the wealth. That's what you want. You know, that always backfires. But when socialist governments run out of other people's money to spend, whatever resources they have left, they pay the military and police to protect them against the population. And then the military and police don't want to lose their jobs, so they do what they're told. And now you have the government stuck in Aristotle's form of tyranny. So communism, socialism always ends up towards an oligarchical or tyrannical form of government. It's really tyrannical, or you know, yeah. Anyway, Texas Donbass doesn't really know how these things work. He just wants an ideal, but it's yeah, it's very layman's terms. It doesn't work that way at all.
Let's have a comedic break. Look, children, who is it? It is Hamas. It is Hamas. You have to say it with the. By the way, it's not pronounced like that in Arabic. It's pronounced like that only in Israeli.
Yeah. What are we doing for time? Let's end it.
We've got about 10 minutes or so. I've got some. You want to just end it?
Let's wait. Let's do the second page in another video, because I want to take the 7 Ps and now talk about how they actually started taking over the universities, then the urban areas, then the blue states. Now they almost got the whole country. So I want to do that in the next video, but it's going to take a while, because I want to go from a taking over what the general strategy is to more how it's applied in different areas in the different papers. So I want to do that separate in each paper. So that's, yeah, ask questions, and we'll just do another video for the second page here.
All right. I've got one last meme that I want to pop up here from a new member in chat. The year is 2029. All the meat and gas girls have been banned. The government sent robots to track you down. This is your story. George, are you ready?
Yeah.
We've already discussed that you've got long guns, so like you're about as ready as most Texans are. On that, I think we should end it. Yeah, let's end it. All right, everyone. Thank you for sticking around. Like, share, subscribe. You know what to do. Peace out.